Council meeting for the 27th of May 2026, and apologies for those that normally are here at 10 o'clock in the morning for a normal time, but due to other commitments we've made this time 1 o'clock. Feels like we've gone back in time because that's pretty much when we used to meet in the old days. Could we please begin our meeting with our normal karakia, please? Whakatakato ki te uru.
Te kuru, whakataho, kore, whakakake mai ki no tūtu, kia mana tāra e ti ki tai, i pāki ane te akura, e hoia, e huia, e hoi, te e Māori ora.
As you'll know, we've got a councillor on Zoom today because the timing between what happens in Chambers, Councillor Fox, and what happens in your living room is slightly out, as we saw with the scene. But glad you can hear us, and we can certainly hear you, which is great. We do have apologies from Councillor Olsen, and just note an apology for early leaving. Councillor Horowhenua has other commitments later this afternoon. So welcome to those in the gallery, welcome to staff. Oh, sorry, move the apologies. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against, carried. Thank you. Just welcome to you all, those watching online and in Chambers. It's good to have you here. We have two members of the public who wish to speak to us today in public participation. And Viv, could you like to join us, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you today?
Good thing.
Well, I've only got two items to speak about today. Speaking as one of the community, 6.4, the electric shares. Community needs some new councillors, as far as we're concerned, not Sharon Crosby or Brendan Duffy, who, as you can see in his brief, hasn't even shown the conflict of interest on Horowhenua Development Company Limited as a chairman. We need some new, vibrant people, please, and we have some this time round. So let's use it, please. Second item, 6.5, jobs for nature, jobs for a purpose in life, an income, a means to exist. Dave Allen, you quoted us the other week. You want it, you pay for it. Well, community don't want the new parking meters, and we don't want the debt, so why should we pay for them? What is needed is the old meters and two new meter maids. And I think in the past we actually had 3 meter maids, didn't we? Di, Sharon, and somebody else. I don't think Wendy's done it for that long. Anyway, why pay for new AI and a new machine to go around to scan the tickets when humans can do it better and be the face for the bin? I see in the survey that there were 328 people filled in a survey that basically said how they liked parking and do you want to shop in the main street. But in the what's the name that came out the other week, you didn't get to see any of actually what they wanted. You just got to find out how many filled it in. So no results shown to council or public. The consultant, which you did have, said community connections do matter. Well, please add to that, because we do matter. We tend to think that all you seem to care about is how you control things. Also, we do want our Salisbury Street parking not to be sold. Under public, that community would get a say and will be kept informed. I have an email to that extent. So please honour your word and talk to us and table this item for now. I was looking, just came a day late in the mail, but still, as soon as I opened it up, it had the significance and engagement policies for Under Section 76AA of LGA 2002, it says, ask the community, why aren't we being allowed the village green, the memorial hall and the car park, even through a residents' meeting? Sediment ponds, $1 million, a waste of time. The land was too high to the actual water anyway, so it never would go in. The boat ramp down the Urapa, this is very wide type of ground. And now I'm seeing more and more about the pathway trying to be pushed around there. That too is a bit of a worry. Anyway, questions please?
Viv, I thought you said there was only 2 issues you wanted to raise with this, so I thought it counted about 22 maybe. Just for your information though, the adoption of the access and parking strategy is not about anything making decisions today. We're not changing times, money or anything like that. When those decisions come up, they will be consulted and engaged with the community. So, and that is probably some years down the track.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions though for Viv? Thank you. Charles.
Ngā mihi kia tātou katoa. Greetings everyone. I don't know if you've all got a copy of what I've got to speak about. Right, the first thing about is the report number 6, report of decision, page 23. Water depth transferred to Central District's water. So I've got questions here. Does this include drinking water? Does it include stormwater system? Does it include sewer system? Does it include the maintenance of? And does it include the whole district? Because will it soon be a separate financial burden on the district's ratepayers? Because if so, who gains? And will there be 3 different CEOs to this body? Those are the questions I'm asking. Because by saying, the ratepayers are only going to be less burdened, they're going to get hit the other way. It's like contact energy and Electra, 2 different components. So that's that one. Now this council, sometimes you don't look at history when you make decisions, right? Living Town Centre access and parking strategy. If you go to 9 public transport connection, page 262, the map, there's a map there, it's got Living Railway Station. This, because I want the district council to know, this, it's historical, this is called subdivision 1. And that is 1 chain strip west and east of the actual railway station. Railway lines. That is actually Maori land. You cannot go and do building, or you cannot put parking meters in the chain strip each side of the actual railway lines itself. You cannot do that, because that will be seen as confiscation of Maori land. So I want you to go back to the Horowhenua Royal Commission of the G2 reports and start doing your study. It's a heavy document to understand, right? It may take you quite a while to read that document. Because Major Kemp, then, he was government agent all that time, he told the Maoris to lie, and some of them did lie, because he said if you didn't lie, you would lose the land. Okay? Now, I know we can't talk about anything on the agenda about public exclusion, but I do have a problem with the Bar Street and Salisbury Street car park thing, and my problem is I haven't seen no consultation with the public. That's my concern. Any questions?
Thank you, Charles. Just also for your information, the Water Transformation New Company, there is only 1 chief executive for the 3 districts, and it does include all assets that are part of our 3 Waters infrastructure. So that includes water, wastewater and stormwater.
Yes, yeah. I have concerns about that. The ratepayers going to get hit.
They'll get a separate bill eventually. It doesn't take effect until 1 July 2027.
Yeah. So by transferring it out from the district council to the other body, it doesn't save the ratepayers at all.
Well, we'll wait and see how that
I can see
unfolds.
the future.
Yes.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you. All right. No late items that I'm aware of. Declarations of interest. Any councillors have any declarations of interest? There being none. Confirmation of the minutes. That the meeting minutes of council the 29th of April 2026 be accepted as a true and correct record, and that the public excluded meeting minutes of council for that same date be accepted as a true and correct record. Seconded for that, Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, moving to our first report for decision, which is the adoption of the annual plan for 26-27, which is on page 7 of the agenda. And Caro, welcome to the table. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, and thank you, Your Worship. So I'll take the report as read. Council has developed the annual plan over the last 9 months, and the starting position for a rates increase for 26-27 was forecast in the LTP to be an 11.8% rates increase before growth, 10.1% after growth, and that figure was updated in the annual plan 25-26 to be a 13.3% rates increase before growth, or 11.6% after growth. Throughout development of this annual plan, councils remained committed to the goals set out in the financial strategy in the LTP 2024. Consistent with council's strategic direction and a focus on preparing for the rates capping environment the government had signalled, in December 2025, council endorsed a development of the annual plan budget based on a 5.8% after growth rates increase. However, council continues to operate in a dynamic environment. Closure of the Strait of Hormuz led first to fuel supply issues and then cost increases for council and its contractors. The government's focus for local government has turned from rates capping to amalgamation with Head Start backstop processes. In the report before council, detail has been provided to enable consideration, if council wishes, of a change to the rates increase to respond to the environment council is now facing, building on what was known in December last year. I would also like to clarify that Resolution A should read that council adopts the annual plan 26-27 as presented in attachment 1, which is formed based on a 7.5% rates increase, which is anticipated to be 5.8% after 1.7% growth. Noting that resolutions B and C are based on the 5.8% after growth figure. Drafting an annual plan is a cross-council effort, and the team is here today and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Caro. Any questions for Caro? Councillor Young.
I just had a question from the gallery that I needed answered. In number 12, 6.1, it was acknowledged that council interests had a moderate impact on a large portion of the community. What was the moderate impact? Can you expand on that? I just couldn't really describe it.
In terms of the significance?
Yeah.
Yes. So within the significance and engagement policy, we have different levels. Does something have a small to low, a moderate or a high impact on segments of the community? And so within that framework, it was looking as sitting within that moderate line rather than a high impact. so that it was consistent with the directions set in the long-term plan, which didn't tip it over, and there was nothing else that tipped it over into high impact. Does that help?
So
Kind
just,
of.
so the
I can
criteria
provide
was that
further
has
detail.
reached certain criteria before.
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Karen, look, I sent through a question in advance of the agenda and got a response just about the growth assumption. So I just want to be absolutely clear, we're using a growth assumption of 1.7, which is slightly different, slightly revised from our forecasting assumptions in the LTP, which was 1.5 for the first 10 years. Can you just confirm that, so I'm just absolutely clear that on what figure we're using and why?
Through you, Your Worship. It's a great question. In the long-term plan, we actually have 3 growth assumptions. The 1.7 is the rating increase assumption. The 1.5 is the population increase. And then there is another one around the number of household unit growth.
Any further? Councillor Grimson.
Yeah, look, I've also asked this question previously, so really keen to get a public response to the question. So if we move forward with the proposed 5.8 recommendation, can you talk to us about the financial buffer that exists to cope with either an escalation in fuel price and or another significant weather event similar to what we've occurred this year? And if there wasn't sufficient buffer in place, what would the implication, how would officers deal with that situation if we don't have the buffer or the headroom to accommodate it?
Can I ask the Chief Executive might have a response to that thing?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, councillors. Councillor Grimstone, I can confirm there is no buffer, and councillors are well aware of that given the zero-based budgeting process we have developed over the last 3 years. What it means is that when we have unforeseen events like a weather event or further cost escalation, for example, as we're seeing now around the fuel situation, there are 2 options. One, we run at an operational deficit, which councillors will be aware requires decision of council because it then is above and beyond the Chief Executive's delegations. Or secondly, we amend our levels of service. So we make operational decisions or seek governance decisions around limiting what we can provide to community in order to protect that fiscal discipline.
Councillor Jennings.
Can I just have a follow-up to Councillor Grimstone's question? Certainly. I just want to be clear then that as part of our zero-based budgeting process, that in terms of forecasting any contractual adjustment that might be baked into some of our contracts, where, for example, where there's a CPI increase. So if there is a significant increase in CPI because of the fuel-related impacts, that adjustment is already in part kind of factored into our forecast assumptions in terms of our operating budgets to meet those so the external contracted requirements, not our own fuel-related stuff.
Through Your Worship, yes, emphasising the 2 words you used in that statement in part, because obviously it makes every year when we're budgeting, we're making an assumption around CPI based on what we know at the point in time in which we're building budgets. So at the point in time in which we were building our annual plan budgets, which was about this time last year, towards Christmas last year, obviously if we had known what we now know, that there may have been additional adjustments made in the budget. And obviously the impacts of that are less
about the direct costs of council, they're about the direct costs of our contractors, and councillors have been well briefed on where those pressure points are.
There appear to be no further questions. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Alison. Can you bring that? Yeah, cheers. Just make it bigger. Thank you. All right, so recommendations for this item are A, B or C. A being that Council adopt the annual plan 26-27 as presented in attachment 1, which is formed based on 7.5% rates increase, which is anticipated to be 5.8% after 1.7% growth. B, that Council adopt the annual plan 26-27 as presented in attachment 1, subject to amendments to the draft financials to reflect a rates increase of higher than 5.8% in response to an anticipated increase in the cost of delivering services within the current operating environment. Or C, that the Chief Executive be delegated authority to incorporate any required financial changes arising from Council adopting an annual plan with a rates increase higher than 5.8% and following the setting of rates on the 24th of June 2026 to update the after growth percentage rates increase rating mechanisms and rating examples within the annual plan 26-27, along with any editorial changes required as part of the publication process for the fees and charges schedule 2026-27 and annual plan 26-27.
Mayor Bernie, I'd like to move option C.
Option C?
That the Chief Executive be delegated to authority to incorporate any required financial changes with a rates increase higher than 5.8% following settling of June 24th financial. So what I would be proposing is 6.3% rate rise.
Deputy Mayor is saying that, so that recommendation is on the table. Just ensuring that we get the right wording in that it's become 6.3% after growth, I assume. Yes. So I'm just going to allow. Sorry, have you got a process?
No, I just wanted to ask a question because I'm confused at the C in terms of if it's increased to 6.3, does that mean it can go higher or will it stay at that level?
Yes, please. Sorry. Through you, Worship, I was just getting permission to speak given you're in debate. I wonder if there is a slight wording adjustment we could make, because what I think the intent of what Councillor Grimstone has just moved is to provide delegation to the Chief Executive to update the annual plan to reflect a 6.3% rates increase, but not to go beyond that. And so if you give me a moment, we can adjust the wording, but I would just need, through you, Worship, confirmation that that is the intent of what's been moved and seconded.
Just check with Councillor Grimstone.
That was my intent.
Right. So while Alice and the Chief Executive are just doing that, we understand what is being proposed. All right, Councillor Grimstone, please.
The annual plan reflects significant work of this council to demonstrate financial discipline. It's also a credit to officers across this organisation who have worked to deliver against our financial strategy. We're on track to deliver a balanced budget and, importantly, meet our rates affordability benchmarks, stay within debt affordability limits, maintain manageable debt service levels, and this is not insignificant given the legacy pressures that we continue to carry. We still manage the consequences of earlier decisions with $57 million in unfunded depreciation, $18 million in operating expenditure, plus interest costs. These decisions created a structural burden that we continue to actively manage. That is why staying the course toward a balanced budget is critical. It is about long-term stewardship, not short-term relief. I do have concerns about our ability to absorb external cost pressures, including fuel costs, inflation, extreme weather events. These are largely outside of Council's control, but they flow directly through to our cost base. Noting Council and its contractors combined use 400,000 litres of fuel in a single year. Current economic forecasts already point to persistently high fuel rates, ranging from $3.15 to $3.50, with diesel tracking similarly. These levels are expected to keep inflation elevated through at least 2027. If geopolitical tensions escalate further, fuel costs could rise to $4 or $4.50 per litre or higher, and similarly with diesel. They would flow directly through into contractor costs, transport and maintenance, and overall delivery of council services. When costs rise unexpectedly, we're offered limited choices. As we've heard today from officers, we have no buffer. Cut services, defer or delay projects, or absorb the costs through financial buffers. Without a buffer, these decisions become reactive rather than strategic. And while I am mindful of rates affordability and recognise that our community is under pressure, equally, it would not be good financial stewardship to set rates at a level that leaves council exposed to foreseeable risks. Rates are our primary source of revenue income. They must be set responsibly, not optimistically. For these reasons, I've proposed a rates increase of 6.3. This strikes a balance between affordability for our community, maintaining progress towards a balanced budget, building a modest buffer against external shocks, and importantly, if we do see an underspend through the year, I would certainly support funds being retained or provisioned rather than returned or reallocated to strengthen our preparedness for future events, particularly extreme weather. This creates a prudent shock absorber within our financial settings and reinforces responsible, forward-looking stewardship. Ultimately, this is about intergenerational fairness, ensuring we maintain service delivery today while building the resilience we will need for tomorrow.
Deputy Mayor.
Mr Mayor, I want to acknowledge the logic which Councillor Grimstone has brought to the table. I agree with that logic. I need to say that. Having said that, I did second the motion pro forma. It's on the table. What I do not agree to is the 5.8. The question mark remains around the 6.3 or whatever, and I'm very keen to hear from the rest of the table about what looks right. So the only comments I want to make are these. First of all, to acknowledge the reality of the cost of living crisis which faces the people in our district. That's absolutely real. Whatever our scenario, and I refer to the report itself, whichever scenario we go with, there will be an increase of between $3.85 and $9.62 per week for households. That is absolutely real. But the cost to running our council in a way which is fiscally responsible is also real. And that's the dilemma. That's the honest dilemma that we face. There is an exponential rise in fuel costs, and Councillor Grimstone has itemised those in a realistic way. That is real. The probability, if not certainty, that these costs will continue into the 26-27 year and possibly beyond, that's also real. Other than rates, our only two real levers are further savings or increased debt. Finding further savings is a daunting task. We've already been there, and we've been there with a vengeance. We have cut severely into the operations of council. When it comes to debt, we know that we have a very limited debt headroom in that regard. And as we know from past experiences, we must always allow for the unexpected. Think about December last year and those weather events. So for me, option A is simply not a responsible option, regrettable though that may be. I am keen, as I say, to understand where the table sits, A, whether it supports option B, and if so, what that would look like in percentage terms. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion, debate? Councillor Jennings.
Mr. Mayor, I was waiting for everyone to jump in, but look, I was going to second the motion just to get the matter on the table, because Councillor Grimstone had indicated that he wanted to have this discussion, and I think that that's useful. But look, I'm really comfortable at the 5.8, and I know that that some people could argue that's not sensible given the current fuel situation. And I might have been minded to look at some level of increase if that increase was going to be shared equally across the district. But we know that rating is a pretty blunt tool, and so even with this modest increase proposed, it's not shared equally. It falls disproportionately on different households because of the way in which the general rate would inevitably increase. And so that's why I'm going to oppose this today, because it has a disproportionate impact on the good people of the Waipahu ward in particular, rural properties, in particular the poor people of Hokio Beach, who are already, because of the revaluation effect, I think facing an increase of around 13% in real terms. And so there are small communities within that rural space that are already going to be under pressure from the 5.8% in real terms. And so I just don't think I can support anything that's going to create even more pain. And I think that there is some offsetting that can be achieved through, as we've already heard, the forecasting that we've done, where we've already baked in our operational budgets some element of covering those inevitable CPI increases. I accept there's still a gap, but I think I'd prefer to find other ways to bridge that gap than doing this now. So that's my position.
Councillor Gray.
I tend to agree with Sam. I think if you look at this for the average household, if your household budget increases, say, by 2% per year, and council rates increase by 5, 6, 7% per year, there will come a time in your life where you simply cannot pay for your property. It's a continuing line. There's no more money in the system, and this is a true indication of how inflation is a silent tax that robs people of their wealth, and we need to do everything that we can to that might mean that as a council we need to look seriously long term as to what we deliver and what we don't, because the fundamentals fundamentals of being able to live and stay on your own property far outweigh any local services that anyone else can provide.
Can you hear us, Councillor Fox?
Yeah, I'm having some internet interruptions, but anyway, thank you, Mayor Burney. I am with Sam and Morgan, councillors, on this because unfortunately I hear what Councillor Grimstone is saying. I just don't believe those in our Kerikeri ward can afford something so much significantly higher than the CPI and everything that's going on, so I'd be voting against this.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Burney. And thank you, Councillor Grimstone and Deputy Mayor Allen, for getting this on the table. And I've thought long and hard about this and thought about the work that's outlined there in this report that we've done as councillors and the conversations we've had with our community about a 5.8% rates rise as opposed to what was in the long-term plan of 11.6%. And I hear that the decision that we took for 5.8 did not trigger significance. And we have aimed to adhere to the financial policy that we've set. One of our priorities, or our pillars, I guess, of priority for this triennium is financial discipline. I know that we are but a rainstorm away from an extreme weather event, and that the global fuel crisis, as we call it a crisis, has been imposed on us and presented, I guess, what we would consider to be unstable times and highly difficult times for everyone who has a dependency on fuel. I am disinclined to consider the 6.3 or the 6.8 based on the modelling, because I do think that we have to stick with what we said. We have to cut our cloth, and we have to be like everybody else and make changes, and we are staring down the barrel of a potential rates capping environment, which is going to make 5.8% look pretty tough as well. So for that reason, and for the reasons of understanding where the rates rises, as we've heard, aren't proportionally distributed across our communities, and I don't want any of our smaller communities to be even more disadvantaged. I can't, I thought I might be able to, but I can't support going above what we went out and talked to our community about, which was a 5.8% rise.
Councillor Mitchell-Coulthard.
I'm at this point feeling quite conflicted because I can see the benefits of both, and what really concerns me is the well-being aspect of these decisions that we're making, because many people will refer to services like library or the pool as nice to haves, but in reality they're not nice to haves. They're the lifeline of much of our community, and when we're discussing growth and moving forward and expecting others to want to come to this community, those are the things that matter. So it's that understanding that we need to ensure that the council can run in a way that can continue to an extent services that really play an important role to our community, and not be in the position where the questions or the examples are, well, let's cut this and we have to cut this and we have to cut that and then we'll have to cut this. So I'm still unsure at this point, because I totally understand the reality of people's lives, and we heard that this morning in our wellbeing community committee meeting, that the struggle is so real and it's increasing. but at the same time, please let's think about what we think is appropriate to cut if that was going to be the case moving forward, and whether you value those things.
Councillor Young.
I echo Councillor Jennings' points. Just the message from the community is they're doing it really tough. I cannot in good conscience go for the higher options. It's really hard out there. I cannot.
Thank you. Councillor Horowhenua.
Kia ora tātou. I'd be in support of the motion today for a 6.3% rise because our community cannot afford a 5.8. However, there is no buffer. If there was to be a weather event, small communities such as Hokiu will be the ones that are affected the most. They will be the ones that require more support, and there is no buffer for that. So therefore, I would be supporting the 6.3. Also, I believe that for it's fiscally responsible to have a buffer, and that with it being intergenerational also means that it's for mokopuna decisions for the future, and it covers them. So again, I will be in support of option 3. Kia ora.
Just in terms of my view, I'm actually in support of the 5.8% increase. I understand completely where others are coming from in terms of wanting to provide that buffer and that more, the ability to maybe take into account some of the shocks that we've got no doubt in front of us. But the landscape we're operating in at the moment is very much around preparing for a rates capping environment where we're going to be 2 to 4%. We're not going to have the luxury of saying, well, sorry, we need to provide a buffer or we need to do this. We're going to have to get used to making some tough decisions. And if the fuel problem hadn't arisen, I'm sure that we would have maintained the 5.8 and been happy with it. I do understand completely that we're trying to protect the organisation, being able to provide the services that we need to, and the expectation that the community has where they want those services but aren't prepared to pay for them. I get that. But the reality is we signalled late last year that we were going out for the 5.8% rates increase. So to actually change that signal today, to me, seems a little disingenuous, to be honest. And I agree with Councillor Mason's comments that we had in a general agreement. Since then, sure, the landscape's changed, but I think we need to stick to our guns and give our community some reassurance that while we completely understand the problem that we are facing, that they too are also facing issues and that we need to react accordingly. So I will be voting against this motion. And if there's no further, Councillor Grimstone, your right of reply.
Thank you, Table. Concerns have been raised about the share of costs across the general ratepayer, particularly given the greater impact on rural ratepayers. While this is a valid consideration, it's important to recognise that many of these costs, fuel, inflation, weather events, are system-wide operational pressures, not isolated to one group. The services impacted, transport infrastructure, maintenance, benefit the district as a whole, including both urban and rural communities. As a result, spreading costs across the general rate base remains appropriate and defendable, and particularly where benefits are shared and risks are collective. On the note of risk, before you cast your vote, councillors, I do ask that you relook at the risk indicators that are held within your report that speaks directly to the deteriorating financial impact that exists with a 5.8% rate rise. I hear Councillor Katrina concern about welfare and the impacts on our community, and I know everyone's doing it hard. But I remind the table that we always serve the burden of decisions made by past councils. And part of the rationale for the rate rise that we have to continue to deliver down is interest costs and lack of fully funding depreciation council term after council term after council term. That contributes to rate rise after rate rise after rate rise because of well-meaning decisions to listen to our community's desire to pay less. We can think back to a 0% rate rise during the COVID period, and this immediate council table knows the financial impacts of making a decision like that. So what I ask is reflect a moment, take the 20 seconds before you're going to be asked to vote. Bottom line, this approach is compliant, it's lower risk, it's financially prudent, it balances fair cost allocation, affordability and fiscal responsibility, and it keeps council in a position to respond to external shocks without disestablishing our core financial settings.
Thank you. Okay, so we will use division this time, and I'll just ask Alice to bring up the table, and we'll start at the top, which is Deputy Mayor Allen.
In favour.
Councillor Barker. Councillor Fox.
Against.
Councillor Gray.
Against.
Councillor Grimstone.
For.
Councillor Horowhenua.
For.
Councillor Jennings.
Against.
Councillor Ketu.
Against.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Mitchell-Kutab. Councillor Olsen is absent. I am against, and Councillor Young.
I'm against.
So the motion is lost. 4 votes to 8. Thank you. Look, I appreciate the debate, actually. It's good that we had that, and our community are well aware of the discussion that we've had, which is excellent. I would now like to move option 1, which is now reads, sorry Alice, can you just make that higher, bigger? My eyesight not that big. The Council adopt the annual plan 26-27 as presented in attachment 1, which is formed based on a 7.5% rates increase, which is anticipated to be 5.8% after 1.7% growth. I have a seconder for that, please. Councillor Gray, thank you. So it's now on the table. I don't wish to speak to that. I think I've made my views known. If there are anyone else who wishes to speak. In that case, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4 against, 8, 4. I assume, Councillor Fox, you voted for that?
We can't see her.
We can't see you, sorry.
She's voting yes.
Yes, I voted for that.
Thank you. All right, so the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, let's move on. We're now going to 6.2, which is the adoption of fees and charges for 26-27. And Caro again is coming to the table. while she does so, can I just move that the council receive the report for the adoption of fees and charges for 2026-27. Second by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Cara.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the report as read. The fees and charges Council is asked to adopt today have been set in line with Council's revenue and financing policy, formed as part of the LTP 2024. Council endorsed the fees and charges schedule at the meeting on the 29th of April. However, again, we're reminded we operate in a dynamic environment and there's one proposed change to the recommendations before you today. In the solid waste fees, officers recommend Council consider a resolution to increase the gate disposal rate to landfill. The reason for this is that Council has received notice from the Ministry for the Environment that their levy will increase, and Mid West is increasing their charges, both from the 1st of July this year. The proposed additional resolution reads that Council agrees the charges for solid waste gate disposal rates to landfill for vans, utes, vehicles be amended to incorporate the increased levy from the Ministry for the Environment of $5 per tonne and the passing on of the fuel increase by Mid West of $1.98 per tonne, with updated charges as shown in the table attachment 2. That attachment would be the table in front of you. And to close, preparation of the fees and charges schedule has been a team effort and we're happy to take your questions.
Any questions for Karen?
I have one, sorry.
Councillor Mitchell-Kuto.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed, and I don't understand why, and you probably don't know, but maybe if you could answer the question. There's a huge increase in terms of general waste and then green waste. So green waste seems to have gone up double and triple, but general waste has not. Is there a reason they gave for that?
Well, I'm just also looking to Daniel in case he's across that as well.
I'll come back with clarification. Yeah.
Yes. Anything further? I'm just, why do we lay this on the table until you've got that information for us, Daniel?
Yeah, just trying to pick up the line item here. I expect it's in reference to the previous increases from 25-26, not in relation to the adjustment for Bonnie Glen, which was all linked up with the just effectively right-sizing and new contracts for green waste management. So it really reflects the cost of providing that service for the green waste. So those were updated in the previous version of fees and charges. This latest change is just to reflect the cost of the waste levy, which is now $70 per tonne, which hits every tonne of waste that goes through the gates at Bonnie Glen, and the fuel costs. So, yeah, it's no increase further to the green waste with this proposed change.
You're comfortable with that response? Thank you. There appear to be no further questions, Caro. Thank you very much. So, B is adopt the schedule of fees and charges for 26-27. Attachment 1, that Council agrees the charges for solid waste gate disposal rates to landfill for vans /utes/ vehicles be amended to incorporate the increased levy from the Ministry for the Environment of $6 per tonne. $5 per tonne. You can see I'm needing to and it needs to come closer. And the passing of the fuel increase by Midwest of $1.98 per tonne with updated charges as shown in tabled attachment 2. All right, so I'll move those recommendations, seconded by Councillor Mason. Is there any discussion or debate? Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, every long-term plan we hear from our community about the phrase user pays, and we make adjustments to our revenue and financing policy, but this is where essentially that policy and that thinking lands in terms of the people who access services where we can clearly identify that the cost of those services pays for them. So I really support the fees and charges and the scope of the changes because I do believe it better reflects the cost of providing those services, and it obviously then reduces that overall burden on the general rate. Just finally to point out in paragraph 18 of the agenda, just to highlight the two new fees which are related to the hose layer appliance. That's a really great initiative, and I think it's something that I've already received really great feedback around, and that's going to translate into a huge cost saving for people building houses that would have otherwise had to require the installation of tank, and these fees are viewed as absolutely reasonable and as a great initiative that council has worked through. So again, just commending the officers, and particularly Blair, for that piece of work and this landing. Councillor Mason.
And at this important time when we are adopting fees and charges that will have an impact on community and user pays, I just want to acknowledge the comments of Councillor Jennings, but want to acknowledge officers and the work that they've done and the briefings that they've given us and the detailed information that we've had in coming to this decision. As I said, not popular, not well, something we have to do, but it's an important part of the pillar that we've chosen around financial responsibility. But I really appreciate the work that's gone into it and the transparency that sits around fees and charges now for people to see. So it's come a long way, so I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And the final recommendation is C, that the Chief Executive be given delegated authority to make editorial changes that arise as part of the publication process for the fees and charges schedule 2026-27. Moved, seconded by Councillor Mitchell-Kutab. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Look, can I too just thank you, Caro, and the team for the work that's gone into the annual plan and charges. I know it's been, challenging at times. I've reflected on the fact that we've gone from 11.6% down to 5.8, which would never have been heard of. Generally, it's the other way around where we're going higher. So, for the work that's been done in behind the scenes to present us with something that is still within our service levels, and as well making those important efficiencies that we're finding, it is appreciated. Thank you very much. All right, let's move to 6.3, which is the Water's debt transfer to Central District's Water, the guiding principles, transfer method and guarantees. And welcome Jacinta to the table. And I understood that we were getting some outside external visitors as well.
Thank you, through you, Worship. Yes, Josh Cairns from St St Gresham will be joining us online.
He's there.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, thank you.
All yours.
Thank you. So I am here today representing the Central District's Water Establishment team, where I'm leading the finance side of the work stream. So the purpose of the paper that's in front of you today, it's another step in the establishment of Central District's Water. And it's a key part of the transfer agreement, which is effectively the process by which assets, liabilities, and everything related to the Three Waters transfers from each of the three councils into Central District's water. This process, in terms of, we got started on the Treasury workstream nice and early, and the purpose of today is about the conversation about the method of debt transfer and the principles with which the debt transfer will be approached. It's definitely not a conversation about the level of the debt. That will be decided later on. This process has been a great collaborative process with the chief financial officers from each council, the CEOs. PwC has been a guiding force through this process as well, and the councils, each of the council's treasury advisors have also been involved in this process. A number of you also attended a joint workshop where Simpson Gruson presented on the principles and the method to each of you, and the board were also present. That was as part of their first meeting. And so the board have also recently signed off the approach in terms of principles and method for the debt, which is great. And so you're the first council in the process in terms of that next stage of the approval. Palmerston North is scheduled to be on the 3rd and Rangitikei on the 11th of June. You'll note in there that this also includes the approval of the guarantees, and that's something that's required by legislation, and that's something that is beneficial to approve as part of this stage of the process. So Josh is here today if there are any questions around that. What I wanted to emphasize to you all is that you already approve the council's debt across New Zealand as part of the guarantee that you provide to LGFA, so it's quite similar in terms of what that means for this council guaranteeing debt to Central District's water. Just as a bit of a, and I know we talk about this lots, and when I was in a different seat talking at this table, the level of debt for this council that's proposed, or when we set our long-term plan and the water service delivery plan, is approximately $115 million of HTC water debt is planned to transition at 1 July 2027. So it's a significant amount of debt. And so the principles that are proposed in this paper in terms of fairness and equity, transparent documentation, sustainability and flexibility, and clarity and simplicity are really important as we work through this next stage of this council and each of the other two councils agreeing the final debt number with Central District's Water Board as we work into that leading up to the end of December. So those are probably the key points that I wanted to mention. Probably the last bit is just signposting that at this stage of the journey, I know a number of you have had interest around and there were some conversations at the shareholders committee around the budget for Central District's water, what that looks like. Today I just came from the board meeting before this where we discussed the budget. And I think it's important to mention that that is a paper that is public, is on the Central District's water website, and any conversations about what that budget looks like is available for everybody in the public to have a look at and understand, because that's something we discuss regularly as part of that board meeting. It's something that we regularly discuss with the chief executives as part of our conversations with the Central District's water establishment team and the CE. So there will be some further conversations to come to this council around potentially a deed of support if Central District's water establishment team look to gain some external funding themselves in the process of leading between now and 1 July 27. The program's going really well, and the key reason why that might be needed is if the digital program, which is in conversation, ends up happening sooner than was anticipated. And that's something that was initially, when the water service delivery plan was set, that was planned to be year 3. And that looks like something that could come earlier. And so there may be a further conversation to come to this council in the end of June to discuss a deed of support from each of the councils to Central District's water to enable it to fund some of that establishment digital program a little bit earlier. What that does is, rather than it being funded by the individual councils and sitting on their balance sheets as debt, it allows that to be funded by Central District's water itself. So I thought it was, while it's not specifically part of this paper today, it's good to just signpost what might be coming. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, this is for the benefit too of the public as well as ourselves. Recommendation C, which is recommending we approve the use of novation as the transfer method, and paragraph 19 talks to the advantages of novation. Could we just unpack that? In other words, what in simple language are the advantages, and also, because the report doesn't really speak to it, are there any risks associated with adopting novation or disadvantages?
Thanks. I'll start, and Josh may want to jump in. In a broad sense, there's a few methods that can be used. And early on, some of the likes of Te Akiwai and some of the earlier councils, when they went through a transition process and chose what method for transfer, they may have chosen something different. There are a couple of main options. Effectively, what novation means is the council has a whole portfolio of debt. Let's assume that 60% of that relates to water. Then effectively take that grouping of contracts, take 60% of it, and from an everyday language perspective, reassign that in contractual terms over to a new entity, which would be Central Districts Water. So that contractual responsibility for paying that 60% of that debt no longer sits with Horowhenua District Council. On 1 July 27, it's transferred over to Central Districts Water. The other approach that's a possibility is a staged approach, where from a balance sheet perspective, the fact that 60% of the debt is transferring over can contractually be reflected. That debt might stay with Horowhenua District Council and be transferred over on a staged approach instead. And if I go back to the novation method, one of the things that, in terms of the principles that's important to mention, the first one in terms of fairness and equity, is when that balance of the portfolio is looked at, and 60% is to move over to Central Districts Water, is looking at making sure that, for example, that interest rate, and that particularly the interest rate, is a fair transfer. So you're not transferring all of the debt that is of a low interest rate or of a high interest rate, that roughly it approximates about the same level. And that's one of the reasons why at this stage we can't say it'll be these portfolios of debt or it'll be these ones, because we have to wait until we get closer to the time to make sure that we're cutting that in the right way, to make sure that interest rates, terms of debt, and those types of things are fair.
So in terms of disadvantages?
Josh, do you want to jump in terms of any disadvantages on the novation side?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really don't see any disadvantages compared to stage repayment. Novation is far superior from the council's perspective in that you are able to shift the debt off your balance sheet immediately, rather than having to continue to be liable for that debt, but with a sort of a back-to-back arrangement with the water organisation. As Jacinta mentioned, the issue that needs to be navigated in making sure novation is successful is getting that portfolio composition fair in terms of the weighted average interest rate and tenor of the debt that's being shifted across. The advice from PwC is that can be done so that what is shifted is a fair reflection of the overall portfolio, but there's a bit of work to be done there. Even if there is a slight difference between the transferring portfolio and what's left behind, there's still an ability within a novation structure to provide for compensation for that. So if we're slightly out, then there can be another way to sort of provide for a wash up. So I'm working across a number of water organisations across the country, and this is the preferred method for all of them where it has been available. Earlier in the process, it wasn't available because LGFA hadn't been able to manage it, but now that it is available, it's certainly the sort of the preferred course for all of the councils that I'm dealing with.
Councillor Barker, you have a question?
I remember the workshop where we were kind of sold this idea of novation being a wonderful thing and being confused at the time, and perhaps I still am, because I Googled it and looked it up, and it meant, in literal sense, the complete transfer of debt and the liability for debt. And at the workshop at the time, if I recall rightly, that wasn't quite the true meaning of what we were being presented with. So just for clarity,
I'd like to know, in the transferring of the debt, are the ratepayers still going to have any liability whatsoever for that debt?
I can speak to that if that's helpful.
Please.
There's two aspects to consider in answering that question. In terms of the novation, it is exactly as you've just defined. It is a complete transfer of the debt, so that it's no longer the council's debt and it becomes the water organisation's debt, with no obligation of the council remaining in respect to that debt. But there is a separate request or requirement of LGFA that is being put to the council as part of this paper, which is then to consider a guarantee of that debt. So although the debt has been or will be shifted, LGFA require all shareholding councils to provide an ongoing guarantee in respect of it. So you're no longer the principal borrower or debtor of that LGFA debt, but you would still have a guarantee liability in respect of it.
Supplementary question. Would that also be the case with the alternative?
Through your worship, yes it would.
Don't appear to be any more questions. Thanks, Jacinda. Thanks for your time, Josh. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Do you want to bring those up for me, please, Alice? And bigger. So there are a number of recommendations as part of this this topic, and my intention is to take A to E in block, and they read: the council approve the guiding principles of the water debt transfer from council to CDW as part of the preparation of the transfer agreement. A1, fairness and equity. A2, transparent documentation. A3, sustainability and flexibility. A4, clarity and simplicity. B, the council notes that the guiding principles for the water debt transfer were approved by the CDW board, and this should read the 29th of April 2026, not as May as in your agendas. C, the council approved the use of novation as the water debt transfer method from each shareholding council to CDW. The council notes that novation as the water debt transfer method was approved by the CDW board on the 29th of April, and the same approval will be requested from each other shareholding council by the end of June 2026. The council approves provision of the following guarantees in support of debt facilities to be entered into by CDW. E1, a bilateral, joint and several guarantee from each shareholding council in favour of LGFA guarantees, and E2, a separate guarantee in favour of approved financiers other than LGFA who participate in CDW's financing from time to time, in brackets global guarantee, subject to E3, the final funding structure and LGFA guarantee and global guarantee together, the guarantees, documentation being satisfactory to council. E4, approval of the guarantees by each of the other shareholding councils, and E5, compliance with the requirements of the Local Government Act 2002 and all other applicable legislation. Happy to move those. Seconded by Councillor Jennings. Is there any discussion or debate on those? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll just speak very briefly to say that the principles make sense. The novation methodology is also sound, and the final sentence of paragraph 19 makes that clear why. So that reads, novation is better aligned with those considerations for CDW because it provides immediate structural separation, a clean balance sheet outcome, and a clearer day one allocation of funding responsibility. Just acknowledging Councillor Barker's line of questioning, I think that I understand his perspective on this, and all I would say is that I think that it's important that the public understand that the methodology of novation is separate to the concept of the the guarantees arise because of our shareholding in LGFA, and so the methodology that we choose, whether it's novation or the staged approach, doesn't dictate the shareholding. It's the membership of LGFA that does. So I don't know if that puts his mind at ease. I suspect it doesn't, but yeah, look, I think that's as a snapshot. The transfer agreement that will inevitably follow this is one of the most critical pieces of work that council will do, and the shareholding committee will do, following on from the statement of expectations. And so it's important to have this, I guess, the frame of that process confirmed and supported today.
Nothing further. Councillor Barker, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with representing what I think, as much as this, it's hard to find anything particularly wrong with it apart from the meaning of words perhaps, but I think that is actually really important, and I think there may be quite a few people out there amongst our ratepayers who would struggle with that as well. So I'm going to represent what I believe is their unease with this and be against it.
All right. Put those recommendations. All those in favour? Show of hands, please. Thank you. Against? Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Fox, I can't see you, sorry. Did you have a question? Oh, yes, in favour. Thank you. All right, now moving to recommendations FGH. The Council delegates agreement and final approval of the guarantees to the Chief Executive. The Council notes that the approval for the provision of the deed of support to be provided by the shareholding councils in favour of CDW in order to ensure CDW can meet its obligations in relation to any pre-establishment funding deed of support will be included in a paper to councils to approve on the 24th of June 2026. The Council approved the execution of the LGFA guarantee and global guarantee and all such other ancillary documentation as required in relation to the implementation of the guarantees on behalf of Council by H1 in the case of deeds, including the guarantees and deed of support to elected members, and H2 in the case of any other documents, the Chief Executive, Mayor Wandin and or Deputy Mayor Allen. Moved by Councillor Jennings, seconded by Councillor Mitchell-Kutab. Any further questions or clarifications or discussion? Put those recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, Councillor Barker. Yeah. Can you please make sure you raise your hand so that Alice can record those properly? Thank you. All right. We're now moving on to 6.4, which is the Electorate Trust 2026 trustee elections. And I'll move that the report be received and noted, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. The first recommendation is that Council proceed or does not proceed with exercising its voting rights for the Electorate Trust 2026 trustee elections. Do I have a mover either way? Deputy Mayor Allen is moving that we do proceed with exercising our voting rights, seconded by Councillor Grimstone. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right. So we do this in a very sort of professional way. Each of us will get the chance to nominate the three people who we think should be voted onto the trust as trustees. You have the ability to vote for three people, and you saw the number of the profiles of those standing, there are 7. people. So we will ask you to either nominate up to 3. Don't necessarily have to nominate 3. You can nominate none, 1, 2, or 3, but no more than 3. We have a very highly paid electoral officer taking the votes. So, all right, let's start with Councillor Gray.
Duffy, I don't know how to say his name, Long and Smith.
Councillor Barker. Sorry, turn your mic on, please. Mike.
Yeah, it's ditto.
Same 3?
Yeah.
Councillor Jennings.
Ditto.
Councillor Grimstone.
Duffy, Smith, and Crosby.
Councillor Mitchell-Kuta.
Crosby, Huston, and Smith.
My 3 are Crosby, Duffy, and Longwe. Councillor Fox.
Crosby, Houston, and Smith.
Deputy Mayor Allen.
Duffy, Crosby, and Longier.
Councillor Mason.
Crosby, Duffy, and Longjet.
Councillor Horowhenua.
Crosby, Smith, and Houston.
Councillor Young. And Councillor Keto.
Yes, Veronica Harrod, Shelley Warwick, and Russell Longwit.
Right. So the 3 names are Duffy, Longwe, and Smith. Thank you for that. Scientific and straw poll, yes. Right, we're moving on, and we're now up to the 6.5, which is on page 231. The Levin Town Centre Access and Parking Strategy. Welcome, Kat and David, to the table. Sorry, we didn't pass the resolution. The Horowhenua District Council votes for the 3 people that were top of the poll. Moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Horowhenua. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Kat. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Mayor Burney and elected members. I will take the report as read. This report seeks adoption of the Levin Town Centre Access and Parking Strategy, which establishes the long-term strategic framework for how Council approaches parking, access, movement and curbside management within the Levin Town Centre as the district transitions alongside the opening of the Ōtaki to North of Levin and the wider Levin Town Centre transformation program. While this is presented today as a parking and access strategy, officers consider the document to be much broader than parking alone. The strategy is fundamentally about how the town centre functions into the future, how people access and move around Levin, how we support economic vitality and business activity,
how we balance competing demands within constrained public space, and how we proactively position the town centre for future growth and transformation, rather than continuing to respond to parking matters reactively on a case-by-case basis. The strategy has been informed through a significant program of work over an extended period. This has included parking occupancy surveys undertaken across the town centre, parking utilisation analysis and community engagement, independent review, operational input and multiple elected member public workshops and briefings throughout the development of the strategy. Officers consider elected members have been well informed throughout the process, with workshops providing the opportunity to test assumptions, discuss community feedback, review technical findings, explore implementation considerations, and shape the strategic direction and refinements now presented for adoption. Importantly, the evidence gathered through this work identified that Levin does not currently face an overall shortage of parking supply. Rather, the issue relates to how parking is currently functioning, including uneven utilisation, long stay parking occupying high demand central zones, inconsistent turnover, and underutilisation of fringe parking areas. The strategy therefore focuses less on creating large amounts of additional parking supply and more on improving how existing parking and curbside space is managed, allocated, and utilised over time. The strategy also recognises that curbside space serves multiple purposes and must balance accessibility, servicing, safety, business activity, public amenity, pedestrian movement, and future town centre outcomes. In that context, the strategy aligns closely with the broader Levin Town Centre Transformation Program and acknowledges the significant opportunities associated with the future revocation of Oxford Street following completion of O2NL. Over time, this creates opportunities to reconsider how parts of the town centre function, including improved accessibility, safer environments, better public space outcomes, improved streetscape amenity, activation, and enhanced walk lane and cycling connections. It is also important to reinforce that the adoption of the strategy today does not implement immediate changes to parking controls, fees, time limits, or land transport bylaw provisions. Instead, the strategy establishes Council's agreed strategic direction and provides the framework to guide future planning, prioritisation and decision making. Any future implementation actions, including changes to parking controls, pricing, infrastructure or bylaws, would return separately to Council and, where required, be subject to statutory consultation and decision-making processes. The recommendation before Council today is to adopt the Levin Town Centre Access and Parking Strategy as a guiding framework for future access, movement and parking within the Levin Town Centre.
Thanks, Kat. Any questions? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Bernie. Kat, that was I wasn't going to ask a question, but you used the word that the strategy is going to guide, and so I think that's I guess the question is, do you see the strategy as guiding rather than dictating particular outcomes? Is essentially the question, just to reinforce that.
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, absolutely. It's a guiding framework, and as mentioned, any changes to bylaws have to come back through Council, but also if there are any probably controversial actions or anything that would prove public interest, we would come back to Council and test a reaction of comfortability if we were to proceed with some of that. So we acknowledge that there is probably some heightened emotions around car parking and access and things like that. So we acknowledge that this is a framework to guide decision making, and as we work through implementation, if there are controversial things, we'd come back to the table just to test that.
Councillor Grimson.
I just wanted this strategy reads really well and is grounded in evidence. I have heard community concern just in relation to the robustness, in particular of the information that you've gathered together in terms of the car parking observations. Are you able to just briefly expand on, I guess, the level of detail that's gone into helping inform the strategy and over what period of time?
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Grimstone. There was a 6-week period of analysis that covered different timings of each of the zones that were monitored. They were done in person at the time by an intern to support the analysis, and so we're comfortable that over that period there was periods of busy retail, there was public holidays, that was over an Easter period, there was weekend analysis, there were a couple of sporting matches, so we're comfortable that the evidence provided was not just at quiet periods of the day to inform the data, but also moving forward we have the new dynamic Aero Ranger, which will provide occupancy rates as we start to learn how to use that technology to inform some of those occupancy rates. So that'll support ongoing occupancy surveying as we move through implementation of the strategy.
All right, thank you, Kat. Thanks for all the work that's gone into this report. I know it's been a big piece of work for you, so I appreciate it. Okay, so we have a recommendation. A, that Council adopt the Levin Town Centre Access and Parking Strategy attached as Appendix 1 to the report, Levin Town Centre Access and Parking Strategy. B, that Council note the adoption of the Levin Town Centre Access and Parking Strategy does not immediately implement changes to parking controls, parking fees and charges, parking time limits or land transport bylaw provisions, and that any future changes will be subject to separate council decisions and any required consultation or statutory processes. Happy to move. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Allen, and seconded by Councillor Mason. Any debate or discussion? Councillor Jennings.
I'll just say, Mr. Mayor, that I think this will go down in the staff column of easiest piece of work to navigate. And no, I'm joking. This was a pretty painful process, I'm sure, for the staff, and I wanted to acknowledge their efforts in taking us along for the journey. And at times I was difficult on a few different things, but I am very pleased that it does reflect, I guess, the broad consensus around the direction of travel, acknowledging that there are those key decision points in future that will allow us to kind of massage or make some more specific decisions to understand what the actual impact is at that particular time. But just again, commend officers for the work, and think that it really is an important guide for us as we undertake next steps, particularly in the town centre strategy implementation. So, thank you.
Councillor Mason.
Thanks, Mayor Bernie. I too want to acknowledge the work that's gone into this, and it has at times been a prickly topic that we've had to navigate. Nobody likes change, but one of the pillars that we've adopted is going for growth, and going for growth means that there are changes in our town and in our district, and particularly with, as we've heard, O2NL and the changes that will occur with that. But I believe the parking strategy is a fair reflection and constructed with the feedback that we've received. And we've heard that a strategy is there to guide us and therefore not limit us. And this seems like a sensible parking plan for our town going forward. And as we know, any changes will come to us or to elected members in the future. So acknowledge the work that's been done, and very happy to support the strategy as it's presented to us.
Councillor Grimstone.
Yeah, look, I'm also pleased to support the adoption of the policy today. It's an important and enabling component of the wider town centre transformation. At its core, this strategy reflects a shift in thinking from seeing parking simply as vehicle storage to recognising it as a critical part of how town centres function. It acknowledges the parking influences economic activity, accessibility, safety, and ultimately how people experience Levin as a place. What I particularly support is the balanced and staged approach that is given out. If we're serious about transformation, about creating a more vibrant, attractive and economically successful centre, then we must also be serious around how we manage access and parking, because parking is not separate from that vision, it is central to it. In supporting this strategy, we're committing to every future action we're not committing to every future action outlined within it. What we are doing is agreeing on a clear, evidence-based direction, one that ensures that our decisions around parking are coordinated, deliberate and aligned with the broader vision. This strategy is practical, it's evidence-based, it's aligned with the future we are planning for Live-In. It doesn't rush change, but it ensures that we are ready for it, and for those reasons I'm happy to support.
Councillor Mitchell-Kutar.
I just wanted to say that I also acknowledge the significant amount of work that has gone into this strategy, and to assure the public that it is about creating a more vibrant, people-focused town centre that encourages economic activity and revitalisation, and that this is a guide for us to actively, continually monitor utilisation, accessibility impacts, spillovers and future growth pressures, and that we are open to reviewing infrastructure needs in terms of the practicality and ensuring we're planning for the town centre we want today, but also for the realities of future growth, affordability and changing community needs, and that we've heard the community, and I'm really proud and content with what we've come up with and the amount of questions and work that went into it in order to make us feel, we're going in the right direction for a future for our community. So thank you very much.
I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Chief Executive reminded me that nothing is a pain for council workers, so it's interesting, isn't it? Here we are talking about the biggest transformation in local government in 36 years around amalgamation and simplification of local government. Yet parking will no doubt be the main topic of conversation in the future for this town. I hope that communities are engaged in the future of local government structure, as they will be, no doubt, and when we take changes to them in the parking controls. Anyway, let's move on. We're now at 7.1, which is the mayoral report, and I'll move that the council receive and note this report. Seconded by Councillor Jennings. Thank you. Any questions, commentary? Councillor Jennings.
Just to be a real suck up and brown noser, Mr. Mayor, I am just going to thank you for your efforts in keeping us up to date with your conversations and engagements over the amalgamation conversations between you and the Chief Executive. I'm feeling quite aware of what's happening in the various meetings and forums in which that's being discussed. So that's just a personal thanks to you. Obviously a massive piece of work. The organisation under the leadership of the CE has got a really clear program of works. I'm feeling like we're not in front of it, but we're certainly keeping up with that. And obviously the important part around that is that our public engagement process at the moment, and it's really important that we hear the views of the community. We have had some requests for like some public meetings and that kind of things, and keen to work with you and others councillors to kind of facilitate that. But just a thank you for your openness and being upfront with all the information that you're getting.
Well, it's mainly done so that you can talk to the public about what's going on, to be honest. That's the main thing, so that we're not talking around the issues, we're talking about and what's current going on. So thank you. Councillor Mitchell-Kutar.
I just want to echo that we are very lucky that we have a mayor that is so hands-on and dedicates so much of his time going around to the community. And I just want to highlight that your mayor's task force for jobs has done an excellent piece of work, and I just want to acknowledge the fact that it is helping our youth in our community, and just congratulate you on the success that you've had in terms of that. So really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good reminder about the work that New South Wales Jobs is doing, actually, because with loss of staff prior to Christmas, we were at zero outcomes late November, early December, and we were struggling to meet the requirements of the contract. But since Christmas, we are now at 71% of what our target was, and that's in spite of having some reduced funding from that, because we weren't anticipating getting 100%. But Kiriana and Tyson have done a fantastic job over the last couple of months, especially in lifting that number to a very credible number, and they are certainly making a difference in our community. It's great. I should acknowledge, though, that the council organisation is helping in that space by finding spaces either with contractors or as interns and things like that. So we're doing our bit to ensure that we are in a position to be able to provide some opportunities for these young people. All right, thank you. Moving on to 8.1, we're now looking at the Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report for May 2026, and I'll move that the report be received. Seconded by Councillor Gray. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any items on that report councillors wish to ask about? All right, moving to 8.2, the proceedings of the Joint Shareholders Committee for Central District's Water. Move that the report be received and noted. Seconded by Councillor Jennings. Thank you. Any further comments or questions that you may have on that? Councillor Jennings, did you want to give any update on?
Just to note that the minutes are accurate because I was there. So I guess just to note that the work to progress the statement of expectations is continuing. There was a constructive workshop on Thursday last week. I'm forgetting my days. Friday, thank you. Friday last week. And there's now a series of workshops that will be occurring within each council and within Ngā Tapu Waiaho. Ours is scheduled for next Wednesday. But there is, as I say, so behind the scenes, there's some really good work following on from the workshop last week to get to a really sharp version of the statement of expectations, which appears at this stage to have a significant amount of alignment, and all of the shareholding councils in Ngā Tapu Waiaho indicated last Friday, I guess, broad support for the direction, and didn't signal any major issues or any issues that would tend to suggest that there is any significant divergence of view. So positive, and we'll see where we land at our workshop next week.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of our open agenda. So I'm now going to move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting to C1, discuss the decision to sell the Bath Street and Salisbury Street car park for proposed redevelopment. C2, Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report for May. C3, the Revocation Negotiation Strategy. C4, Shannon Bulk Haulage Lease. And C5, the appointments of independent members to our Risk and Insurance Committee for 2026 to 2029. Seconded by Councillor Horowhenua. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you for attending, Ashley and Oliver, and thank you to everybody that has been online as well. We'll take an adjournment for 15 minutes now and resume at 3 o'clock. Thank you.